High-performing teams have a culture of sharing feedback. Feedback is very important because it engages more than one person, more than the person doing the specific activity or delivering a specific element of the overall goal. It engages other people. So it's good to both seek feedback but also receive feedback. And again, it makes sense to try to create or establish a culture of feedback seeking and feedback sharing. If we don't have such a culture, people can easily be defensive to feedback. They can easily consider that feedback is somebody putting a blame to them for their particular action or lack of such action. So, in addition to establishing a culture of feedback seeking and sharing, we should also consider feedback as a constructive tool to delivering some sort of insights and sort of advice that will help the person achieve their personal goals. So feedback that tries to help somebody and tries to make them do the job faster or smarter would be well taken. This is constructive feedback. But if it's a feedback that is not packaged well, then the person may easily become defensive and try to argue with you, try to convince you that this is not exactly as you regard the situation to be. And ultimately, this is going to create a hostile situation that's going to bear no fruits. There will be no sort of value extracted from such situation. To prevent negative situations from occurring, it's good to consider the so-called SBI framework. It's a very simple framework that consists of 3 key steps. The first one, S, stands for situation. It's very important to really regard what the context is and direct your feedback towards a particular context, towards something very specific, an activity that has been done, a specific situation that has occurred on a given day, a specific sentence within a report, etc. So this makes the person very aware of the context, the person delivering the feedback and the person accepting the feedback. They need to understand what specific context or situation this refers to. The second step of the SBI framework is B, which stands for behavior. Your feedback needs to be directed towards a specific behavior. If it's not about content being produced, then it has to be the behavior of that person. Maybe this person missed the deadline. And then you give feedback to this particular activity, to this particular behavior, missing deadline, coming to meetings late, etc. And you don't really emphasize on the character of the person, the personality of the person. You don't give feedback on the person's characteristics. You provide feedback on this specific behavior that you have observed in a given situation. And then you touch upon the last point, the last part of the SBI framework, which is I, that stands for impact. What particular impact did this behavior lead to? How did this influence the work of the team, the work of a specific department within the organization, or the organization overall? In this way, following the SBI framework would help us to even deliver feedback in a constructive way, and for this feedback to be more acceptable by the other party. What if you are in a position of a person who's providing feedback? Try to speak from your own perspective. Don't make it seem like you have talked to other people and all of you have decided that this behavior is unacceptable or this result or output, any sort of content generated by this person, is not up to scratch. Always speak that the feedback is your personal feedback from your perspective. Don't involve other people because it may be perceived as you gang up on somebody within the organization. And if you are from the position of a person receiving feedback, then the best option for you is to say, thank you very much for your feedback. It doesn't really matter whether you accept the feedback or you agree with the feedback, but you would like to spot any sort of tricky situation that may bring some friction within the communication process and cut it off as early as possible. You say, thank you very much for your feedback. Maybe you're kind of at the moment a little bit agitated or excited and you feel really trying to defend your actions, but this is not the best moment to do so because you're in the heat of the moment and therefore you would be prompt to making some sort of communication mistake. It would be much better to take the feedback, regard it, than to consider whether it's a fair feedback, whether it's unfair feedback, whether it should really influence your actions next time or it should not. And if you really want to defend your output, then you can strategically think about any sort of proof that you can bring up later. But I would say that the best option is to just say thank you very much for your feedback and carry on. I hope you enjoyed this short video and let's catch up in the next one.